To many people, the biblical truth of God punishing people in hell is hard to accept. Maybe God sending the likes of Hitler to hell is welcome. But a God who has revealed himself as loving, gracious, forgiving and merciful, sending people to a place of torment and everlasting conscious suffering, just isn't fair. It just isn't right. When we ask questions like this, we are using our own sense of fairness and rightness as our platform to argue from. We have our own personal opinions, what right is and what fair is. But we need to always remember that we only see things from a human perspective, and our perspective is always biased towards ourselves. Take, for example, a young child constantly asking for sweets. And when her mum or dad says no, the usual reply, well, in our house anyway, is, that's not fair. The child is seeing things from their own perspective, and often this is far from accurate. When it comes to our moral compass, our conscience, we need to remember that it has been affected by sin. Our sinful nature means that the readings are often wrong, with our sense of right and wrong. An exaggerated example is what we've mentioned earlier. Hitler thought he was doing right when he exterminated the Jews, and many others with him thought the same. But we know he was wrong. But to him, it was right. You see, it's not us who determines ultimately what is right and wrong. It is God. It is God who is the lawgiver of the universe. He is the ultimate judge. It is God who is the one who determines what the consequences are for breaking that law. The Bible says God is holy. 1 Peter chapter 1. I am holy. The Bible says God is love. John 3 verse 16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. God is righteous. Everything God does is right, simply because it is God that does it. God does not change his views for us. No, we must change our views to agree with God. We are sinners. The Bible says all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. Any deviation from his holiness, not ours, his righteousness, not ours, is sin, and the offender is due punishment. Sin is then breaking the law of God. This is what brings disorder into God's universe. And God's punishment is clear. The Bible says, the soul that sinneth, it shall die. The wages of sin is death. To God, sin is so horrendous, so awful, that only eternal torment and suffering is the fit punishment for those who sin. Our own sense of justice would be offended if a local judge, after finding someone guilty of murder, decided to let them go. There would be an outcry, and rightly so. Why is it then we find it so hard to accept that we are subject not just to the law of the land, but to the law of the universe, to the law of God? We sometimes think that love and justice when it comes to God are opposed, but yet in us we see clearly how it is possible to be a loving judge, and yet a just judge. So when we begin to see things God's way, our question isn't, how can God send anyone to hell, but how can God bring any one of us who have broken his law to heaven? The God who has the right to determine the law for the universe is the God who has the right to determine the punishment for the guilty, but also, and this is the message of the Bible, he is the God who has the right to provide a way of escape for the guilty. The Bible says, 2 Peter chapter 3, God is not willing that any should perish. We've already heard John 3:16, God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son. The sacrifice of Jesus Christ on the cross both satisfied God's justice with respect to our sin and opened a way of escape from hell. So how is it we can escape hell? John 3 verse 36. He that believeth on the Son hath everlasting life, and he that believeth not the Son shall not see life, but the wrath of God abideth on him.